All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are diving deep into what's being called the Great Silver Squeeze. This isn't just about prices. It's a look inside the huge strategic game being played across the globe for one of the planet's most critical metals. And it all kicks off with this central mystery, right? You've got to ask yourself, why is it that you can hear stories about physical silver getting harder and harder to find, while the price you see on your screen just doesn't seem to reflect that at all? That's the core question we're going to unpack.
And to get to the bottom of this, we first have to understand that we are really dealing with a tale of two completely different silver markets.
See, the market is basically split right down the middle. On one side, you've got what we call paper silver. Think of things like ETFs, futures contracts, all that financial stuff. It's mostly driven by leverage and what the market thinks is going to happen. But on the other side, you have physical silver, actual bars and coins you can hold in your hand. And that is driven by real-world nuts and bolts supply and demand. And lately, boy, have they been telling two very different stories. And this is where it gets crazy. This difference shows just how much stress is in the system. At one point, there was a nearly $8 per ounce price gap between Shanghai and New York. That is not normal. That's a giant flashing red light telling you that someone, somewhere, is desperate for the actual physical metal, and they are willing to pay a huge premium to get their hands on it. And that someone was mostly in the East. And that massive price difference? Well, it wasn't some market fluke. No, it was actually a key part of a very deliberate, very strategic long game being played by one of the world's biggest economic powers, China. China pulled off this brilliant, simple two-step move. First, step one, pull. They let that super high price in Shanghai act like a giant vacuum cleaner, sucking in physical silver from all over the world. Once the metal was inside their borders, they moved to step two, lock. They slapped on strict export licensing, which basically trapped all that silver right there in their domestic market. But here's the really crucial part. This wasn't just about hoarding silver bars in a vault. Not at all. The real goal was to dominate the market for finished goods. By securing the raw silver, China makes sure its factories, the ones cranking out solar panels, electric vehicles, and batteries, have all the critical materials they need to completely own the global market for these future technologies. And check out how cleverly they've positioned themselves to do this. China itself barely mines any silver. We're talking less than 5% of the world's total. But it absolutely dominates the refining stage, processing something like 65% of the entire global output. So they let other countries do the dirty work of digging it out of the ground while they control the most important value-adding step. It's a genius move. So this whole strategy works so well for China because it's playing out against a much bigger story, a fundamental global imbalance. So let's take a quick look at the numbers. This chart tells you everything you need to know. The world is estimated to mine about 835 million ounces of silver. But industrial demand is projected to explode to 1.2 billion ounces. We are just using way, way more than we are pulling out of the earth. And that leaves us with this massive, gaping hole, an annual deficit of over 350 million ounces. And let me be clear, this isn't a one-time thing. Every single year, the world needs this much more silver than it actually produces. It's a structural, built-in shortage. So the obvious question is, why don't we just mine more, right? Well, it's not nearly that simple. For starters, about 3/4 of all silver is just a byproduct. It comes out of the ground when you're mining for things like copper or zinc. So its supply is actually tied to the demand for other metals. On top of that, getting a new mine up and running can take 10 years. And for the last decade, global production has been flat or even falling. So where is all this silver even going? Well, it's going into the very technologies that defined our world. We're talking electronics, solar panels, cars. They are just gobbling it up. Silver isn't just a pretty metal for jewelry anymore. It's an absolutely essential industrial metal. I absolutely love this analogy because it captures perfectly why silver is so critical. It has the highest electrical conductivity of any metal on the planet. Copper's good. It's like your local roads. But silver? Silver is the multi-lane, high-speed superhighway. For high-tech stuff that needs to move energy fast and efficiently, there is simply no substitute. Okay, so this brings us all the way back to the paper market. Now, it's easy to paint it as the villain here, suppressing prices. But it actually serves a really important stabilizing purpose, especially for manufacturers. And that purpose comes down to one word: hedging. Just imagine for a second, you run a big solar panel company. you need to know what your silver cost is going to be for the next year. Hedging allows you to go into the futures market and lock in that price today. That way, a sudden price spike doesn't just completely wipe out your business. So let's be really clear here. Big industrial users, they're not in the futures market to gamble on silver prices. They're using it as an insurance policy. It's a critical risk management tool that helps keep their factories running even when the physical market is going haywire. So when you step back and you put all of these pieces together, the physical shortage, China's master plan, the massive industrial demand, you start to realize, wow, this isn't just a market story anymore. This has become a full-blown geopolitical battleground. And here are the main players in this game. You've got China, which needs silver to fuel its ambition to completely dominate manufacturing in solar, EVs, you name it. Then you have the United States, which desperately needs it to secure its own critical supply chains for things like semiconductors and advanced medicine. You've got two superpowers, both laser-focused on the same critical metal. And this isn't some kind of secret backroom deal. This is official policy. It's out in the open. Both of these nations have publicly declared silver to be a strategic metal. That takes it from being just a commodity and elevates it to an issue of national security. So where is this fight actually happening? Well, the main battleground right now is Latin America. Countries like Mexico and Peru, they're the world's top sources of silver. China has been moving in, buying up their raw ore to feed its giant refineries. And at the same time, the U.S. is using all of its diplomatic and economic muscle to try and push back against that Chinese influence. So, what's the bottom line in all this? The key takeaway is simple. The physical shortage of silver is real, and it is not going away. For right now, the paper price can kind of live in its own little world. But at the end of the day, reality always wins. Eventually, the paper market is going to be forced to catch up with the undeniable fact of physical scarcity. Which leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In a world where technology is king, what is the true price of controlling the essential metals that build the throne itself?